Hello and welcome back to the Anything Liverpool channel. I'm joined today two lovely gentlemen, Stephen, Tom. First, I'll get the news out the way. Liverpool are signing Alexander Isak. Let's just jump into it straight away. That's that's the main thing that we're here to talk about. I've got Kieran as well. How are
No,
we doing,
can you hear us
Kieran,
now?
mate? We can hear you. We're all good to go. We got it working. There we go. Literally, you haven't missed anything. I mean, let's start by introducing everyone. Steve, how you doing today, mate?
I'm doing very good. I'm definitely doing an awful lot better than Kieran, the poor sod, with the news that's come out today with Liverpool. Basically, Richard Hughes essentially has decided to drop his balls down on every negotiating table possible, considering that that Rodrygo's agent is also working on a deal to move to Merseyside, and now he's basically sat and told Newcastle to that will either give you a record fee for Isak or we're coming and taking your number one target. And there's fuck all you can do about it, unfortunately. So I'm in a great mood, in my own opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Kieran, obviously resident Newcastle fan here. I'm sure we'll discuss it more, but you know, can't hide away from the fact that it's not looking great as if he is.
Nah, it's not. We might not end up getting either of them at this rate, Isak or Ekitike. So, but I think we're also coming about Isak because Liverpool aren't the only club after him. Everyone wants Isak, but it was always going to happen at some point. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
But I'm not in as good a mood as Liverpool fans are, that's for sure.
No, don't blame you either. I mean, Tom, how you doing today, mate? Good day to be a Liverpool fan, innit?
Absolutely fantastic day to be a Liverpool fan. I posted a few TikToks about Alexander Isak, and every single time we posted it or I posted it, there would be comments from Newcastle fans saying it's never going to happen. So it's always good for that to come back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll kick it off first. Again, if you are watching this on Twitter, guys, we're live on YouTube as well. Come over, subscribe. We're starting to kind of grind down on YouTube a bit as well. So, plenty of content's going to be coming over the summer transfer window and also over the entire season. So you don't want to miss it. If you are on Twitter, come over to YouTube, join the gang, subscribe, like the stream. Helps us out, helps us get there. But if you have missed it, I don't know where you've been, but every single reliable journalist from Fabrizio Romano to David Ornstein has come out and said Liverpool want Alexander Isak. Now, their brief is that obviously Newcastle don't want to sell Alexander Isak, which makes sense, but that Liverpool are willing to go up to 120, 130 million, which would be a flat outright British transfer record. Now, there's many players you can consider the record. I guess technically it's Vert if you include add-ons. If not, it's Endo Fernandez. But 130 million would definitely be a record. I think it would be a fair price. I know there's probably some varying opinions in the air on how much he is worth. I've always kind of stuck along the 120 million to 130 million. I know, Steve, you've been very much that's a bit too much for you. Now it's kind of a bit more realistic. You're warming around to the price.
It's more, I've always sort of held the opinion of trust the nerds. And that's more so been the opinion that I've had. And that the reason I sort of looked at it logically earlier on in the season is that, look, Isak's a fantastic player. He's one of the best strikers in the world. Nobody's questioning that. But if you sort of take off the Liverpool hat bias of that's who we should go for, and you sort of put on the Michael Edwards hat and the Richard Hughes hat of looking at it from both a financial and PSR and FFP standpoint of how many wins is Isak going to give us, and how much do we value each win at on a Premier League season. So with that, I'd kind of be, that's why I didn't think it was worth it. Plus the fact that he does love a groin or a hamstring injury. And if you're putting 100 million plus 120 million down on a player, they need to be as close to bulletproof as possible. And he's not, which is why I was kind of thinking our model sort of looks to get the next version of it. Like Salah, for example, our data team found Salah, and because he was seen as sort of a Premier League flop, nobody wanted to go near him, and we were actually shocked at the fact that we could have gotten him for that much money. Now, we didn't think he'd turn into what he is, but we thought he'd be pretty good. And he's smashed all expectations with that. That's why I kind of was more so thinking, get the next version of it, which is Ekitike. And it's kind of ringing true now in the fact that Newcastle are so mad for him that he is essentially an Isak clone. Like, even if you look at all of the numbers and how the player profiles compare to each other, they're literally clones of each other. And that's why I would have sort of moved away from it. But if the nerds and the data guys think that 120 million for Alexander Isak is completely fine, then I'm completely fine with it. I was just looking at it through the sort of prism of what they would, the Moneyball prism, I suppose, is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, definitely. The YouTube channel is Anything Liverpool. But it's also underneath the tweet if you are watching this on Twitter or X. Kieran, price-wise, I've seen a lot of Newcastle fans kind of say 150 million. I even saw Lewis Bowden. I know we shouldn't take him too seriously, but he said 175 million. You know, I think everybody accepts that Alexander Isak, if he gets sold, is going to be a British record. It's very much Coutinho-esque, I think. I've been saying this to a couple of Newcastle fans I know. This money could push you a couple of years ahead, you know, and the fact that you have a ready-made replacement who is seemingly ready to join and can slot in, he can do a job straight away. I don't think you're going to get a better chance than this, because you then risk losing him for a lot cheaper next summer and also not having a ready-made replacement there and going a lot more risky. Do you think the 120, 30 million fee is fair, or do you think Newcastle might try and push for a bit more?
I would say 150 million, but that's just me being biased because I'm a Newcastle fan. But Ekitike is very similar to Isak, in my opinion, like very similar, but Isak's just the more experienced. So it's kind of like, do I want the experience and does Isak want to stay? I think this move will only happen if Isak pushes for it. I don't think Newcastle, well, we don't want to sell, but Liverpool want him. So it depends on Isak. Does Isak want the move? That's the question, really, in my opinion. And I think Isak's happy at Newcastle, but again, I'm going to say that because I'm a Newcastle fan, but I don't know.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's very much for Isak, it's a tough year to decide, because obviously you've just got top 4, which is a great achievement. You've just won your first trophy, but at the same time, he's 26. He's got 3 years left on his deal. For him, I don't think he will. I think if he pushes for a move, it'll be very respectful. It'll be, look, you're getting a very fair fee for me here. And look, Newcastle are a decent sized club, but you know, we're steps ahead at the moment. You know, we're Premier League champions. Any striker in the world is going to want to play with Florian Wirtz and, you know, Mohamed Salah feeding them balls. And I think for him, it's where does he go if he stays another year? Because Arsenal are signing Gyökeres, Liverpool are signing. If we don't sign Isak, we sign Ekitike or Sesko. For him, where does he go next? Barca, are they going to pay up? Real Madrid, you know, they like to sign players for free. It's kind of, I think for him, it's such a hard year for him to kind of decide. And, you know, I think, again, I know obviously I would be in the exact same situation as you, Kieran, if it was the other way around. And we probably were with Coutinho. We were like, oh, no, like, was Coutinho worth 142 million?
Whoa.
Definitely not. But you have to get every player. But, Kieran, what's your thoughts on Richard Hughes dropping his absolute massive bollocks on your guys' head and stealing Ekitike as well? That might be one of the biggest power plays I've ever seen from a sporting director.
You lot are just going mad in the market, to be honest. Like, I already thought without signings that you'd go back to back. But now that you've got Wirtz, you've got Kirkes, you've got Frimpong, and now you want Isak as well, or Ekitike. I just don't see how anyone competes next season. Like, I really don't. And if you get Isak, it's even worse. And then, yeah.
It's a win-win for us, and it's potentially a lose-lose for Newcastle. You know, it's were you on the train of the copium with all the other Newcastle fans thinking you will play a 4-4-2, or was you on the sensible train and seeing that was never happening with the amount of wingers that you have?
Well, that's the thing. I don't see why we'd bring in Alanga and Gordon and have Barnes, Murphy, all these like wingers. And the main part of our squad is the midfield: Joe Linton, Tonali, Bruno. So to play 4-4-2, you have to break them up. I just don't. I mean, Eddie Howe's magic, so he could have probably made it work, but I wouldn't want us to break up that midfield because you need Joe Linton, you need Tonali, you need Bruno for our team to work. So I'm not sure. I never really had an opinion on the 4-4-2. I never really knew how that was going to work, but
on paper, in my mind, I just thought, no, this is an Isak replacement through and through. But time will tell. But Tom, it's a massive statement by Liverpool, isn't it? To say we're going to take the best striker potentially in the world, and we're going to shatter our record not once but twice.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. I mean, obviously, I grew up with the Liverpool of Roy Hodgson, signing people like Paul Konchesky, and just to think where we are now with Wirtz already, Kirkes, Frimpong, and now potentially Alexander Isak. It's just massive. And in my opinion, I don't really think it would be a good move for Newcastle not to sell up and get Ekitike. Obviously, that's coming from a Liverpool standpoint where I think we really do need an Isak. We do need a striker. I just don't. I think, like for your example with Coutinho, it's like a carbon copy. If you sell a big player for that amount of money, you just have that money there to go and improve your squad massively. And so if they get 120, 130 million, which by the way, I think is the right price for Alexander Isak, because how do you value a Premier League? And I think with Isak, that's almost a certainty for Liverpool. With that money, they can then buy Ekitike and then have 60 million spare to go and spend on another player to improve their squad, another player to improve their depth. So especially with Newcastle being in the Champions League, and we saw how they struggled last time being in more competitions, I think depth is a massive thing for them. And I can't see them signing Ekitike for depth. And yeah, I just don't see how that would work if they signed Ekitike and didn't move Isak.
Definitely. I mean, Jay said here, it boils down to Isak, and I think every fan, Newcastle and Liverpool, kind of is on that train. If Isak wants to join Liverpool, it's probably going to happen, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we all saw the reports that is what was said. I'm not sure how credible those were, but if Isak is the guy that is trying to push a move here, there is no other option, because we've seen how it went with Victor Gyökeres. Look, I don't think Isak would do something like what Victor Gyökeres has done. I think he's much more respectful to the Newcastle fans and what they've done for him. But if Isak wants out, then I think that's game over.
Yeah. And players hold so much power in today's game as well. It's as much as people, we've been subject to it as well with Real Madrid. Even though tapping up is illegal, you can talk to representatives, and deals are done before they're even the clubs are contacted in most situations. And I honestly think that's what is happening. I mean, I said kind of in one of our chats, I said, after Caicedo, after Zubamendi, we won't be bidding or being prepared or even letting Newcastle know that we're willing to spend that much money if we haven't had some guarantees from either Isak or his agent, because we're not getting embarrassed like we did again with, Caicedo, Lavia and Zubamendi. It's just, for me, it's not on the cards. And I think if my opinion is if we have said to them we're willing to buy him, there's been a significant encouragement from Isak's side.
Yeah, that's the way that these transfers go, and you see everybody on Twitter that either they're ignorant to how it works or they're just having a clue to begin with, in that they're like, oh, just throw 50 million, make them sweat, put 100 million bid down, and you're kind of like, that's not how it works. You need to establish the player personal terms first, to at least a point where they're like, okay, yes, I like the project, bid, and let's see what happens with the club. That's exactly what happened with Florian Wirtz, that Bayern were so sure they were going to get him that they just basically didn't put in any groundwork. And Vincent Kompany basically said, oh yeah, we might play you 10, we might play you left wing. Meanwhile, our beautiful ball bastard and Arne Slot turns around and says, you're going to be the quarterback of the offense. You're going to get the keys to the offense for the next 10 years. It's going to be yours. We're going to build around you. We're going to have a left winger beside and a right winger either side of you. We're going to put one of the best nines in the world in front of you, and we're going to platform you to be the best 10 that you can be for the next 10 years, or at least the next 5 years. So when it comes to that side of it, that's how we got Florian Wirtz. We sold him on the project and then said, cool, now we're going to bid. We've gotten the personal terms basically over the line initially, and now we're going to bid. Doing anything in any other order doesn't work. We've seen that with the Caicedo side of things. We've seen that with Zubamendi last summer as well. I think Zubamendi was basically all but done. And then the second it broke to the wider media, he kind of was like, no, maybe not. And then I also don't think he's got the minerals to do it in the Premier League either. That's just my own personal opinion on it. Not because he's an Arsenal player now, but more so because I called this 12 months ago when we didn't get him either. I was like, he clearly hasn't got the minerals to play in the Premier League. But how these transfers works, you have to get the personal terms over the line, because if you don't, you now look like a tit trying to drop 120 million on somebody. And now everybody knows you have 120 million to drop. Case in point, Bayern with Wirtz, now we're trying to squeeze 100 million euros out of them for Luis Diaz, because we know they have it, because they tried to get Florian Wirtz with that. So that's how these kind of transfers will happen. If the personal terms can be agreed with, as you said, and as Kieran said, I think he'll respectfully be like, look, I've gotten you guys back to Champions League. You have a ready-made replacement, and you're going to have a bit of dosh to get a centre-back as well if you want that Scalvini guy, or if you want somebody else. And then also you can get James Trafford on top of that as well, and your net spend is nearly at zero at that point, because you got, I think it was, who did you get rid of earlier this summer? It was I can't think of his name. You got rid of him for about 20 million euro. Oh, it'll come to me later on. Once Isak has made a decision, and I think his agents have probably communicated that with Eddie Howe, hence why the meeting took place. And you have Martin Hardy, who's a Northern correspondent for the Times, saying that meetings were had, and then after said meeting, they were like, let's go get Ekitike, and they reignited the interest that way. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Personally, I can see this being wrapped up before Liverpool play their second preseason game on the Asia Tour, because I know they play AC Milan in about a week's time.
Yeah, Lloyd Kelly, you were thinking about.
Lloyd Kelly, that's who it was.
Who, by all means, has been shocking at Juventus, so that's a fun one. Yeah, we nearly signed him.
We signed him on a free and sold him in a year later.
I remember before he joined Bournemouth, I think we were linked with him when he was at Bristol City.
Was he one of them that Carter wanted, Charlie? I'm nearly sure he was somebody Carter wanted.
Potentially, but it was a long time. I think it was when he was at Bristol or someone, but yeah, mad move. But Kieran, from where does this put Newcastle? Because it's no secret that you have had issues with PSR. You are close to signing Trafford for what they want, 30 million. You're interested in the Italian centre back Scalvini, who's going to cost at least 50 million potentially, if not more. I don't know how much, but obviously you've spent 55 mil on Alanga. potentially a DM I'm hearing, people want another midfielder potentially. And then you need to replace Callum Wilson. And now if Isak leaves, it's replacing Isak. But if Isak leaves, potentially helps fund that and kind of negates the PSR issue. But we're already in pre-season. I know you guys are obviously in Austria. It's a little bit awkward timing, but you've got a bit of notice. So is this kind of, if you sell Isak, do you think the club will give Eddie Howe and his team all of the money to say, do you know what, we trust you, you've got us in the Champions League, you won us a trophy, go and spend the absolute limit? Or do you think maybe the club will be a bit more sensible, sign Ekitike and kind of see what the rest of the window has in store?
I'd say they probably just give him the money because he's kind of in charge of transfers at the minute, but we're just taking so long to get things over the line. Like, how many times have we been rejected by players this summer? That, like, even that can't be attractive to the likes of Isak. Can't be.
Yeah. It's, a few people have mentioned here, obviously not like the money, but Harvey Elliott's up for sale. Probably we'd be willing to part ways with him. West Ham are interested in him, But again, you've also been linked with players. We have Mark Gahey. I know Crystal Palace want a stupid amount of money for him, considering he's got 1 year left on his deal. But it could, if you get Ekitike and you have you rebuild Isak, you could go out and get an established centre back. Scalvini's a massive risk, and as I'm sure Steve might mention, his legs are made out of breadsticks. He's not a great injury record, so it's. And I don't know about you, but for me, I think this is such an important season for Newcastle. You really need top four again to kind of give you a bit of a buffer zone on PSR and have you still in this top 6, top 7 debate. Because we look at Spurs, they finished outside the top 4. They finished nearly got relegated, and they're able to still spend because of how much money constantly being in the Champions League. It's a massive season, and this probably throws a massive wrench in the works for Eddie Howe, doesn't it?
Yeah. If Isak does stay, I think next season is kind of the deciding season, depending on how well we do. But how likely is it that he's going to stay? That's the thing. Like, does he want to stay? Does he want to be in the Champions League with us again? Because look how that went last time. It's completely up to Isak, the whole thing. It's because we don't want him to go. The fans don't want him to go. Howe won't want him to go. The club don't want him to go. It's all up to Isak. It's just a waiting game with him, really.
It's as I've said, I'm sure Newcastle fans will disagree, but I don't know about you, Tom, but I don't think we push forward with the news today. If we haven't had some indication that he's willing to join.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think from a Newcastle point of view, I know the fans won't see it, but there is literally a carbon copy of this happening to Liverpool. We did not want our best player to go, Coutinho. He was absolutely on form. We didn't want him to go, but when that amount of money comes at you, you just have to say yes. And I think if they keep Isak next season, I can't see them getting top 4 because they haven't really improved anywhere in terms of depth. Like, obviously they got Anthony Elanga, that's one position, but I feel like their struggles are in defence, and I can't see them affording Ekitike, a centre back. They've already bought Elanga. That sort of money, they don't have that kind of money. And I think if they look at it from an outside point of view, selling Isak is probably the best situation for them, as hard as that would be to hear, because you get that amount of money and you can really improve your depth, and probably, we all talk about how Ekitike is a carbon copy of Isak anyway, just a little bit more raw. Like, I'm looking at the stats here. Last season, in 33 and 34 games, the XG for both players is within 1, but Isak got 8 more goals. So it's just about how polished they are as strikers. If they sell Isak, they will bring in Hugo Ekitike, who will do a job for Newcastle. and then they can get that centre back with money to spare. So, in my opinion, Isak, if Liverpool wouldn't have said to the club to come if Isak hadn't have said anything. I just don't see that happening. We already made that mistake, like you said, with Caicedo. I just don't see, with how smart our transfer team is, I just don't see them making the same mistake again. So there had to be some sort of indication. And with Newcastle rekindling their interest with Ekitike, it just makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if we do miss out on Isak, Tom, we've got Ekitike that we can, go and sign. And yes, he's a little bit more raw. He's a little bit more of a risk. He's not Premier League proven, but he's young enough, similar to kind of Darwin Núñez, is if in 2 and 3 years he doesn't work out, he's still going to be 25, 26. You can sell him for probably a profit in that time. So it really is. It's a risk-free signing, essentially, if we do miss out on Isak. So Richard Hughes, he's got to have massive, massive credit from every Liverpool fan, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, it's kind of like Darwin Núñez, but for me, it's a little bit different in I think there's less risk because Darwin Núñez was doing it in the Portuguese league, and we've seen so many times, time and time again, a player scores 20, 30, 40 goals in the Portuguese league, does okay in the Champions League, and you think, wow, what a signing that'll be. Whereas Ekitike, he's done it in the Bundesliga, and I say he's done it because he scored a goal pretty much every other game, with 8 assists on that side as well, and only 1 penalty scored. So yeah, I think Liverpool are in such a good position here where they either get Isak or his younger brother, essentially. So it's just what a great position we are in at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And before we move on to kind of the next topic, again, guys, we've got like over 8,000 people watching across YouTube and Twitter. If you're on Twitter, please come over to the YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Turn notifications on. We're going to be uploading a lot more. We uploaded a video earlier today, kind of a bit of a discussion on it. So leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it if you want to. And yeah, let's get everything going. But
before we move on, I have to address this comment because I'm shocked you didn't see it.
I saw you start.
Maybe
I saw
you did,
you
and you were like, maybe
something.
Yeah. Now, Hancho, I don't want to insinuate that you haven't watched Liverpool for quite a while, but in the Klopp era, the number 9 role was the only thing that gave an awful lot of people life with Bobby Firmino. So I'm not going to make assumptions in that you didn't watch us or anything like that, but it's only been maybe the last 3 years that the 9 role hasn't had as much life as it used to. But that number 9 jersey used to have a lot of life. And you're talking to one of the biggest fans here of Bobby Firmino that's currently hosting this live stream, and I'm shocked he didn't say it.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he means an actual, a real number 9, not a false 9.
Yeah.
But we all love the Bobby Dazzler. But all right, let's go on to Rodrygo. The news doesn't stop, guys. Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes. Michael Edwards probably isn't even doing anything. Richard Hughes is just probably speaking to about 1 million people at the moment. But Richard Hughes and reports from kind of Spanish reporters, and then also Santi, I think Sasha, the Belgian one, might have reported it as well, that Liverpool are joining the race, and there's been talks of potentially meeting his agent, Rodrygo's, that is, who obviously at Real Madrid, Xavi Alonso isn't giving him the time of day because he's already got too many egos in his team and he needs to fit them all in. And unfortunately for Rodrygo, he doesn't have a big enough ego as Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe, so kind of being left on the sidelines, which for us might be very good. Early reports state that they're looking for between 60 and 80 million euros, which surprised me. I thought they were probably going to be looking for about 80 million pounds. And look, I'll be real, I'm on the Anthony Gordon train. If we can sign Anthony Gordon, I will be all over it. Get a Scouser in the team, a little kiss of the badge against Everton. I live for stuff like that, and he's homegrown as well. However, if Rodrygo is available for 70 million euros, that 55 million pound, you cannot turn that down, can you?
No, Not at all. Rodrygo is an absolutely fantastic winger. The problem is a lot of people are looking at him in that Real Madrid front three, and recency bias is taking place because he's currently playing in a front three, all of left wingers. Vinny Jr. is a left winger. Mbappe is kind of a false nine left winger. And Rodrygo is also a left winger. And now he's gone from Carlo Ancelotti to Xabi Alonso, and he just maybe isn't fancied in that particular system, which is a shame because I think he'd actually do well in it. But when you have Vinny Jr. and Mbappe on that front line, Rodrygo is the odd man out and will have to basically toe the line. Over the last number of seasons, he has been a defensive workhorse covering the running for the two of them, especially before Mbappe arrived and especially after it, because them two don't run. They're passengers in possession. When it comes to his offensive output, if you took him from the right wing and played him on the left wing, I think he'd go up another level. And you know me as well that I'm the biggest Cody Gakpo fan in the world. But Rodrygo is a better player than him. I've no question in admitting that. But what I said about Gakpo is that you'd be very hard to find a replacement that's attainable. And now all of a sudden there is one that's possibly attainable. I know you're on the Anthony Gordon train as well, but as you said, if you can get Rodrygo for even 60 million, 65 million pounds, rather than Anthony Gordon for 60 million pounds, you're taking Rodrygo every day of the week, in my own opinion. And you'd probably maybe be like, nah, I'd still take him because he's Scouse. But if you take the Scouse hat off, you'll probably still say, like, yeah, Rodrygo.
Look, it's such a difficult one because he hasn't really played as a left winger for most of his kind of professional career at the top now. Obviously, that's where he kind of originally started that. But ever since, Vinicius Junior was at Real Madrid, he's had to be shifted to the right because Vinicius Junior can't play anywhere else. So it's like, can he do it on the left wing? Because we now don't really, he hasn't played there enough to kind of prove it. But he's 24 years old. If you then have let's just say a front four of Florian Wirtz, Mohamed Salah, Rodrygo, Alexander Isak. I mean, Kieran, I know Newcastle are top four hopefuls, but there might be a question to just not even start the league and give Liverpool the title if they have that front four.
Yeah, like I said, Isak, Wirtz, like all of these players that he's bringing in, it's just giving you more like ammo to go and win the league again. Rodrygo for me is perfect for Liverpool as well. I think he suits Liverpool perfectly, especially because apparently Diaz wants to leave as well. So I think he's a perfect replacement for him too. On Gordon as well, I would be open to selling Gordon, to be honest. I know that might surprise you, but I really actually would be open to selling Gordon.
But is that because you'd rather sell Gordon than Isak?
If it means you don't get Isak, you can have Gordon.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we nearly signed Gordon last year. Obviously, there was that swap deal for, I think it was like we would pay 80 million for Gordon and you would pay 40 million for Joe Gomez to kind of help with PSR. I believe there was a medical in Germany where we had pre-season, and then you managed to get 40 mil or whatever for Minter, and the deal was called off.
Mm-hmm.
So look, there's history there, and I still think, if we weren't signing or if we weren't trying to sign Isak, I think if we sold Luis Diaz, Anthony Gordon would probably be the first choice. I just don't think there's a world where we sign Isak and Gordon this summer. I mean, I don't know from what you think, Kieran, but I think Newcastle fans might go into meltdown if that happens.
Yeah, we'll be gone if that happens. Then you forgot.
I mean, you would be fairly compensated that you'd get about 200 million. So, you're getting your money worth, but it's you're ripping a lot of your attack up, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. To be fair, I think Gordon would jump at a move to Liverpool as well, because obviously he's a Liverpool fan, he's a Scouser, so I think Gordon would like that move, and I think it would suit him as well. But we would need a replacement then as well. And who would we go for? Because I mean, we've just brought in Alanga, but he's a right winger, so
Harvey Barnes did all right when Gordon got injured.
Yeah. Barnes
obviously,
was really good last season, but I don't think I mean, we're going into the Champions League. I think we need someone more than better than Barnes. You know what I mean? Not to be like that, but
yeah, I know what you mean. He's
gonna
like
be a Champions League club every single season. Barnes isn't the man to take you forward. We need someone like Gordon, if not better.
Well, I tell you what, I've just thought of an amazing proposal here. Anthony Gordon's best mate is Curtis Jones. We don't need Curtis Jones. You just can have him, and Curtis Jones and 80 million. I think that's a fair deal. And then
Charlie, the living oxymoron of let's get a Scouser in the team by giving them the only Scouser left in the team at the moment.
Well, people like to say, "Oh, you just want to sign him because he's a Scouser. You just want to sign Scouse players." When I run an agenda against a Scouser, so that doesn't fly with me. But yeah, I mean, Tom, it is a mental day when you think about it, isn't it? We turned down 70 million for Luis Diaz. We won 100 million. Bayern Munich are coming back in for him, which obviously says they're willing to pay up a decent amount. And then as soon as we reject that, we're interested in Rodrygo and obviously Isak, who we've already talked about. But there's so many moving wheels. It's hard to kind of keep up with it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going round and round. I have no idea who's leaving, who's staying at this point, which honestly could pose a few problems for Liverpool if we end up getting rid of our whole attack and signing a completely new one. Not that I think we would struggle with a front four of, like you say, Rodrygo, Isak, Wirtz, and Salah. But look, I think I'm not on the Anthony Gordon train as much as others are. I think Rodrygo is a better player than Anthony Gordon is. I don't think there's much of an argument for the other side of it. But look, if we move on Darwin Núñez and then Luis Diaz, we've got the money to sign an Isak and a Rodrygo, which is just unheard of. So I think we're driving the bargain for Luis Diaz high, but I think we're highballing them. I don't think Bayern will come in again for 100 million. Maybe we're saying 100 million just so we can get 80 or 90, which is still a really good amount of money for Liverpool to then go and splash on another left winger. But Bayern are sort of embarrassing themselves this window. I think they've gone for every left winger under the sun, and everyone said no to them.
They're going to get Marcus Rashford alone, calling it now.
That's how it's going to end up. Because I mean, they went for Wirtz. They said we're getting Wirtz. It's definitely done. I saw all these accounts saying that. Then he's come to Liverpool. Now they're begging us for another player. They were also in for Cody Gakpo at the start. So look, I think we're in such a great position right now. And if we can move Diaz for 80, 90 million, even 100 million, I think we're in such good stead to go for a Rodrygo. Or look, I'm not a hater of Anthony Gordon. I still think he would do really well for Liverpool. But if we get either one of those alongside an Isak, it's just incredible. I've never seen anything like it. This is probably one of the best transfer windows I've ever seen.
Yeah, especially if we get all of our targets. I mean, Gahey's kind of went silent, but I think if Gahey happens, it'll probably be towards the end of the window when Crystal Palace realise, hang on a minute, no one's going to pay 50 million for someone who's... the issue is with Gahey as well, he's still 24, so you can wait a year. If he was 25, 26, it might be worth paying 35, 40 million, but he's 24. You just wait a year and get him for free when he's 25 next year. We've been linked with, is his name Leone? Parma sent.
Giovanni
Leone. Him and obviously Scalvini, kind of two of the most highly rated Italian centre-backs. We've also got a backup striker that, we need to sign, unfortunately. So I potentially think there could be realistically 4, if not 5 signings still to make. And we've already brought in, technically 5, but, the main ones, obviously, Wirtz, Frimpong, Kerkers, and then the 2 goalkeepers, Mamadashvili and Przeski, or however you say his name. Another Hungarian, too many for my liking. But it's crazy. I mean, there's going to be a lot to discuss, and you don't want to miss it. So make sure you are subscribed, to the Anything Liverpool channel. Again, we're coming up to 10k, so massively appreciate that, guys. YouTube, anything Liverpool, make sure you follow us on X as well if you're not already. The YouTube link is in the below the tweet, so if you're not already, come and click on that and subscribe to the channel. Just fly through a few questions first. If you do want to get any questions in, we'll try and read them out. Steve, I know you're kind of a decent, you kind of like Morton. I know you were kind of advertising for him. West Ham obviously interested in him and Harvey Elliott. I'll kind of bring it to you, but Morton's definitely going this season. He was good in the champion. He's been good.
Yeah.
He's had a few good spells in the championship. I think probably 15-20 million does it. Slot seems to prefer McConnell. And I think it's kind of time for Morton to leave. 10, 15, 20 million maybe probably gets it done, doesn't it?
Yeah. Look, I think with certain youth players, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, you've probably hit your ceiling for us, and the amount of time it would take for you to probably break through into the first team isn't going to serve you or us at this point. So what we could do is basically just sell you and get pure profit back into the books. And then we go and promote other guys through the youth teams. Because, like, if you think about it, the crop of midfielders and sort of wingers that are coming through, like you have Trent Cone-Doherty as well. You have Jayden Danns that's looking to come through. He'll probably go on loan this season. You then have McConnell, as you mentioned. You have Trey Neoni then as well. You have a couple of other midfielders as well that'll be coming through the youth side of it. And you don't want to be limiting yourself to just loaning to oblivion with certain players, and sometimes it's just better to cut ties as well. We can technically only loan 6 players come the start of next season, so you don't want to use up. I don't think youth guys actually come into that, or maybe they do. I probably think they do, because we don't loan many first team players. It's normally all the youth guys that end up getting loaned. So if you think about it, the likes of Jayden Danns is probably going to go on a loan. Maybe they send McConnell on a loan. Maybe they send Ben Doak on a loan again. Maybe maybe Trey Neoni goes on a loan to get like first team men's minutes, if that makes sense. So having Morton there as well limits your flexibility in that, because they may turn around and sell Nalo on loan as well, who could do with a lot of first team football in a proper setup. If West Ham came in for Tyler Morton and just threw 20 million on the table or 15 million on the table, I'd let him go, because it goes straight into pure profit, and we on the books then for PSR for the next 5 years, that basically gets multiplied by 5. So we essentially, for Kelleher and Kwanzaa, hilariously, we've basically paid for Isak, if you want to put it that way, which is the funny thing about it. But with Morton, yeah, I think it's just time for him to go. Solid player, lovely guy. I think he's lower tiered Premier League, higher tiered Championship level. I don't know if he's going to develop beyond that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Kieran, another player who has been linked with Liverpool, and I actually think would be a potentially good option for Newcastle as well, if for some reason Ekitike didn't work out. He has 1 year left on his deal. Great Premier League season last year. One of the best celebrations in the league, Mr. Boom Boom Mateta. He's in the room. I think a lot of people are sleeping on that. And, you know, if Liverpool or even if Newcastle could get him as a backup, you know, would he want to be a backup? Maybe not, but he would be the type of backup who can start games. You know, he's not going to be on the bench every game. Both teams will be playing, you know, 60 plus games this next season. You know, there's 7 Champions League games in the group stage, and then you've got knockouts, you got cup games. You know, money's bigger than ever. 30 million for a Premier League striker who's an absolute lethal goal scorer in today's market. You know, that's an absolute bargain, and I think, you know, Liverpool and Newcastle would be a great signing.
He's a good backup for Isak. He's a great replacement for Callum Wilson as well. He's quite similar to Callum Wilson, but we've been linked with Watkins and Visser as well. But apparently they want like 50, 60 million for Watkins, which I don't think for his age is a normal price for a player like that. But Mateta, I mean, he's got the Prem experience, but I wouldn't personally take him at Newcastle, personally.
I mean, Tom, I disagree with him. I think, I think he's 28 at the moment. He could. We've had great backup strikers over the year. Divock Origi, obviously Diogo Jota as well. Every kind of since Klopp's come in, that backup striker has been so important and has been adored by the fans. As much sometimes as the main striker. I think if you're Mateta, if you're looking at it, Crystal Palace unfortunately looks like they're going to the Conference League unless their appeal with CAS, doesn't happen. If you're Mateta, you've got 1 year left on your deal. Potentially your last chance for a club to maybe buy you and get Crystal Palace some money. You're not getting any younger. Your chance to play in a Premier League winning side who are going to challenge for a Premier League again. They're going to challenge for every cup. They're going to challenge for every title. And you're probably going to get at least 2,000 minutes a season, which potentially could expand your career as well. Maybe not playing every week might give him an extra couple of years at the top level. And I think it's a win-win for everyone. When people were saying the Mateta links aren't good, I was thinking, he's not going to be a main striker. Ekitike, Isak, they're going to be your main striker, but he offers Premier League experience. He's a bit different. He's not like Isak. He's not like Ekitike. So he offers you, something different when you're struggling in games. I'd love it, me personally.
Yeah, and I think from his perspective, why not get a Premier League medal while you still can? Like you'll sit on the bench for some of the big games, but there's also no telling that there won't be an injury to the main striker where you'll come on and really show your worth. I mean, we've had, like you say, Divock Origi. You'll become a cult hero at a club like Liverpool. You'll be adored by the fans so long as you're performing. But even if you're not performing, we've seen with Nunes, like we still absolutely love the guy. So as long as you've got the right mentality at a club like Liverpool, why not? Why not come and play on the bench, get your minutes, get a Carabao Cup for us? Come off and play those games. It's obviously, I think, similar to the Isak situation. It's down to the player at the end of the day. If he's got the ambition to be a first team player at a big club, then maybe this isn't the right move for him. But even saying that, if he plays off the bench for Liverpool and really shows how good he is in these types of games, then maybe it does push his career forward, like you say. So yeah, I think it's down to the player, but I would absolutely love it if we got Mateta to play off the bench. Obviously, he's not going to be our number one striker.
Yeah, and he's cold celebration. Like, let's be real. Hearing the boom at Anfield would hit different. And
would.
Bit of a mad one. He tucks his shirt in. How many players took the shirt in?
Yeah, proper Barclays man.
I know. Yeah, it's like get his socks lower. He'll be looking. Just get Florian Wirtz with him. Get his socks lower, little mini shin pads. He's on one. But yeah, I think it's a great sign. I mean, Steve, I give you a minute to talk about him, but it's a smart signing, and we know Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes like smart signings. Yeah. And as I said, 1 year left. Surely it's a good signing, Nasty.
Yeah, 1 year left in his deal. You could probably get him. He's an older profile, and we were sort of told or briefed through the media that we're going to be aiming for between 21 to 25, 26, basically. And that seems to be where all of our targets are coming in. It does, like, Mateta is one of them that he's very efficient. Do you want to know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Diogo Jota, God rest his soul. But he reminds me of him in regards to watch him come on at 60 minutes and bag a goal. Like, if you looked at his time with Palace last season and the season before, he only took just over 2 shots a game on average, and his on target percentage was over 50%. So every two shots he takes, one of them is on target. And I think he didn't necessarily. I think he overperformed his XG by, I think, maybe 6 across both seasons. So he's a very efficient finisher that is flying under the radar for an awful lot of teams. One team that I think that should get him is actually Man United, because he would fix an awful lot of their issues that they have at the minute. Xerxes couldn't score in a brothel with 50 quid down his jocks, like, and Højlund is even worse than that, and possibly one of the worst signings I've ever seen in my life. And we signed Andy Carroll for nearly a record fee at the time. But I think he's what a team like United should be doing, is a cheap, quick option that has a year left. He could probably do 3 years with you. You could probably entice him with your silly salaries to begin with, that you could get him quite easily. And he basically comes in and sits behind somebody that's a good creator in Mateus Cunha. And then if you end up for somehow getting Brian and Bumo as well, that's a good front three to bring you up from where you are at the moment. Now, will it make them anyway at all contenders or top four? No, but it might make them top half. I'd love Mateta as a backup striker. If he was our main striker, I'd be worried, and I'd be concerned about the direction we'd probably be going in with that position. Like, are we waiting like a Van Dijk? If Isak doesn't happen, are we waiting 6 months until Christmas and then throwing a bid in and getting him halfway through the season? Or is he going to be the 9? It's a difficult one. If he was a stopgap there for a year and then we throw money at somebody in 12 months' time, I would be happy about it, but I could see the vision with it. If he was the backup to the main guy, I'd absolutely love it. And in my opinion, he replaces what Diogo Jota brought us, in that unbelievably clinical striker that could turn in on a dime and finish, and it's just like a really good finisher. Like, you know how you can see with certain players, they use the power behind their foot to put the ball past the keeper. Sesko is one of them. He is a rocket of a foot. Whereas Mateta is a little bit more savvy, a bit like Jota, in that he positions his body and uses his eyes to trick a keeper rather than using sheer force. Because there was a game, I think it was the Fulham game and it was the Everton game. I was at the Fulham game last year where we drew 2-2. And the goal that Jota got to equalise it, to put us 2-2, he looked the keeper the wrong way and put the ball the other side of the net. That's the kind of striker that Mateta is. And if we got him as a backup to be sort of reinforcements for the main guy, if it's an Isak or an Ekitike or a Sesko, I think it'd be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Just really quickly, we'll do one more kind of quick topic that Ben Jacobs reported on. But just one more call, guys. There's like over 10,000 people here watching on X and YouTube. So again, guys, if you are watching on X, go over to our YouTube, subscribe to Anything Liverpool. It's also underneath the video on the stream. We're going to be streaming a lot more. We're hoping kind of 3-4 times a week, probably be around 6:30 and post games when the season starts up. But yeah, you know, hour here and there. So I'm breaking ones like we're kind of doing today. So make sure you do subscribe. There'll obviously be videos as well, and follow on social medias, and make sure you follow, you know, everyone here. I think a couple of people got the tags in there. So okay. Really quickly, I don't think Fofana is going to happen. I think he's with Lyon probably not getting relegated. I think they're probably going to want 40 million. I don't think many people are going to pay that. I'll be honest.
I think they want 55 million from with them not being relegated.
Yeah, so I think unless Lyon, the issue with Lyon is they're like Napoli, their owner just gets involved too much and ruins all the deals for them. So, but one thing I do want to talk on, Tom, I'll start with you. Hato, Ben Jacobs and another guy has reported that Liverpool and Chelsea are looking at Hato. We've been linked with him quite a bit. Obviously, continue our Dutch contingent with us just signing every good Dutch player that the world has to offer currently. It'd be a good signing. You know, we've been looking at kind of a left back who can also play left centre back. I think if that does transpire, it really brings the future of Robertson and Tsimikas right to the forefront, because you will essentially have 4 players who can play left back, and we're already pushing it with 3 players at the moment, and neither of them, apart from the Atletico Madrid link, neither Tsimikas or Robertson have really been linked away. apparently they want 60 million euros. The report says teams are looking at around 40 million, which I think would be fair when you look at kind of their sales. But he's versatile, he's strong, he's good, very good in the air as well. He's very fast and wouldn't need much settling in. I think when you look at left centre backs and young ones, especially, which we need to look at for Van Dijk, who's probably going to be departing in a few years, there's not many better options, is there?
No, not at all. And I made a video about this in April, where I was making some predictions for Liverpool to sign some players. And I had Kirkes, Frimpong, Hato, and I think Isak in there. So I could be 4 for 4 by the end of the window, but likelihood is probably not. But in the comments, there were a lot of Ajax fans saying that 60 million euros wasn't enough. Talking about how much of a leader he is, how quick, how strong, how much of a great defender he is. And I watched some highlights, and obviously highlights is a different thing to how they actually play, but he is so quick for a centre back. And he always seems to be diving in and getting there. So I think it would be a massive signing for Liverpool if we got him. I'm also a little bit worried about Konate and what's going on there, because if that's another Real Madrid situation, we're dropping the ball again. But for that side of things, I think maybe we play Konate for this next year, let him go on a free, tell Gahey that that's what we're going to do, basically, and then get him for a free next year, which is a possible option for us. But with Hato, yeah, I think top player. And if we can get him in, maybe not this summer or in January, but next summer, I think that's a great thing for Liverpool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Kieran, kind of all of our the positions we need all kind of interlink with Newcastle, but with them looking at Scalvini, I'm surprised you aren't really looking at Hato. I don't know if you kind of know much about him. Obviously, I know Lewis Hall is obviously an amazing player, but kind of your centre backs. I know you guys love Shaw and Botman, but I think when you're looking at top world class players to help you win the Champions League, you probably need to improve. And I think Hato for 40 million, you can kind of promise him the world as well, compared to the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea, who already have top players there. That to me screams at maybe like a Newcastle or kind of like a Spurs, someone who can offer him that. But for 40 million Premier League, I think he'd be a good signing for Liverpool and Newcastle as well now.
Yeah, I would take Hato personally. Like you said about Shaw as well. Shaw's getting on now. He's losing his legs a bit. I think he's like 33, 34, something now. Not quite sure. But you mentioned before as well, Gahey. I would go back in for him, but for some reason we aren't, because he's Prem proven. He's perfect for what we need, really. Botman, I think, is a long-term centre-back for us. I know you said, obviously, you maybe don't think he's the world-class centre-back, but
he is also made out of Weetabix.
Oh, yeah. His injury record is terrible. Terrible. But again, Isak's got a bad injury record too.
Oh, don't get Steve started on that. He turns into a doctor when he looks at his bloody injury history on Transfer Market.
Last season he wasn't too bad, but
he played 33 Premier League games, and as I say to Steve, if you want to go down that injury record with Isaac, you also have to look at bloody Florian Wirtz, who's damaged his cruciate ligament twice.
I mean,
at 22 years old.
But the issue is that Florian Wirtz had one big injury, then came back, got 30 goals and assists, 30 goal contributions in both seasons after it, and won Player of the Year twice in a row. So, I mean, apples to oranges a little bit.
They're both fruit at the end of the day. But, I mean, Steve Hato, we've been linked to him for a while now. I remember we were linked with him a couple, kind of when he first broke in, and he wanted like 80 million. And I don't think maybe he's really stepped up as much. Maybe stepped up is the bad word. He's captained them a bunch of times. He's kind of more played as a left back for them, or like kind of in a back three a little bit. But he's a good signing. I think, you know, for the price that we're looking at, you're not going to do much worse, are you, in today's current market?
No, you're not, for the potential that he has. And just before I get into that, and just after seeing it there, Alex Crook, who is a journalist with TalkSport, is actually saying West Ham are planning talks with Liverpool this week over a deal for Harvey Elliott. That's just been put out there now, just so that we can note that for everybody watching, the 11,000 people that are nearly watching, which we just touched on a minute ago with Morton as well. But Jarell Hato it's an odd one, because I think the problem is that I think last summer might have been the time to get him, because then he becomes homegrown, whereas now he doesn't become homegrown because he won't have enough time with us to then become homegrown. But if you did sign him now, you essentially get the guts of 3 years of him not being counted on the register. So he doesn't go towards the 17 until 3 years' time, and by that point, that's an eternity in footballing terms. So I wouldn't go on anything higher than, like, Ajax's record fees, hilariously, are all Man United. With Martinez or
defenders, not Frankie de Jong went for like 80 million.
Yeah, but the defender side of it, that's Lisandro Martinez. He's the biggest one at about 50 million euros. So
I don't bigger to Juventus.
It would have been a De Ligt to Juventus, actually.
I think De Ligt was like 70 million or something ridiculous.
It was about 70 or 80 million. Hilariously, both of them now at United. And both overpaid for massively. And let's not even get into the whole Anthony debacle as well. That United basically went away on holiday and then came back and found out that his price went up 50 million quid. But no, with Hato, I don't see any downside to it. He's a young guy. Apparently Virgil van Dijk is a massive fan of his, and with Virgil van Dijk being around him an awful lot in the international setup, I think he'd have a good gauge of his character and a good gauge of whether he'd fit sort of the Liverpool ethos. I love him. I genuinely love him at the club. I think he could be sort of that versatile, you know how like playing a left-footed centre back at left back was so all the craze when the likes of Gvardiol came into the league, and now it's kind of gone to the wayside. I think getting somebody like him and developing him as both a left back and a centre back allows you so much tactical flexibility that you could play a Frimpong and let him maraud forward consistently, and then you have essentially a pseudo back three of Hato and then your two main centre backs, whoever they are at the time. I would be all for it. Now, the fee is the only other thing that I'd have a question on, is that if it's anything over about 45 million pounds total, I'd be like, no thanks. We'll wait, see how he develops, because there's no point in taking a punt like that on such a young kid that hasn't come up through the Premier League. And we've seen him, because if he plays for Ajax in the Champions League and everything like that, but it's a different kettle of fish, and you need to be utterly generational, kind of like Cody Gakpo was before he moved from PSV to us, because he was scoring goals for fun in the Eredivisie. So it remains to be seen whether we'll go for him, but I could see us being very interested in possibly getting him next summer after another year of development at Ajax.
Yeah, definitely. We also have a great relationship with Ajax, considering that our main man, Johnny Heitinger, who was our assistant manager, was his coach last year. They signed Yaros as well, and I think they're also very interested in Tyler Morton too. I think they're one of the clubs that are interested. So it could be if we wanted to get a deal done for Hato, I think regardless of who's interested in him, I don't see how we, unless Chelsea are offering him a 10-year deal, 180 grand a week, which, let's be real, is a possibility, which is a crazy thing to say. I think we kind of get that deal done if we need to. But yeah, so I think that's everything. We've been over an hour, so we've kind of peaked at 11. So thank you very much, guys. Massively appreciate it for being kind of one of the first streams. As I said, we're going to be doing this regularly. Might depend on what news is. We might go live tomorrow as well. So they'll kind of all be around 6:30, 7ish. So again, make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, notifications on. That'll be the first place, where we'll be going live, and obviously we'll be posting a lot more videos as well. But yeah, Tom, Steve, Kieran, massively appreciate you all joining us. But yeah, so this has been Anything Liverpool, and thank you very much for watching.